Peace, family. I want to talk a little bit about friendships, but I want to talk about friendships within the context of relationships and marriage. I met my wife when I was 12 years old, about 12 years old, and immediately I wanted to get to know her better. But I can promise you, platonic friendship was the absolute last thing on my mind. Why? Because primal instinct demanded more. And that's a very common demand when boys meet girls. We've always had other couples that we were friends with. We've hosted cookouts, house parties, and so on. But at the end of it all, we don't really have friends of the opposite sex. Well, let me give a little bit of context to that. We don't have friends of the opposite sex unless they're friends to our marriage. When I was in the military, they had a policy on fraternizing. And the policy was in place to maintain the integrity of relationships, of professional relationships. And so, for those of you who don't know what fraternizing is, it's when people are unduly familiar. And that means they have a personal relationship that doesn't respect the difference in their rank or the positions of their authority. And so, as a rule, they say if it can be perceived as fraternizing, then it's fraternizing. I like that. It's to the point and it keeps people on their toes. So, for example, you won't see the ship's captain having lunch with the ship's pay clerk, not unless the whole office of pay clerks is also invited. And that's to avoid even the appearance that something extra or something inappropriate might be going on. And so we have friends or we have couples that we're friends with. And in our group, we all have each other's cell phone numbers. We're all each other's Facebook friends and all of that. And so if I have a question for my buddy's wife, I'll send her a text message, but it'll be in a group text. And in that group text, it'll include my buddy's wife, of course, and my wife will be in that text, and also my buddy will be in that text. And so the point is to avoid any perception of unwanted behavior. And so he'll never look in her phone and see messages from me that he doesn't also have. So when I say friends of our marriage, I mean we operate the same way. We're friends of our friends' marriage as well. And so what that means is we don't have people around us who do or say things that appears like it could even compromise what we have or what we're trying to do. It always cracks me up when people ask me or my wife, they say things like, "You two have such a great relationship and you've been doing it for so long. How have you maintained such a great relationship for such a long time?" And then when we tell them things like this, our stance on platonic friendships, they say stuff like, "That sounds so insecure. You guys sound so possessive, and it's not natural to be that exclusive." And then to that, I usually say something like, "Well, do you think it's natural that people are having such a hard time maintaining basic relationships?" And of course, they have to admit that I have a pretty good point. See, you don't have to necessarily do extraordinary things to have a great relationship. You just have to do the ordinary things better than other couples. The average couple fails. The average relationship, the average marriage fails. All you have to do is ordinary things better than the average couple. And being protective of something valuable, I think that's about as ordinary as it gets. And so we err on the side of caution because when you truly value something, you don't take unnecessary risk with it. Look, there's three types of couples, right? There are winners, there are losers, and then there's winners who haven't quite discovered how to win yet. And so that third one, the winners who haven't quite discovered how to win yet, these are your couples that, even though they experience hardships, they're committed to improving their relationship. And so they get counseling, they may read books on how to be a better husband or a better wife, all kinds of things that show that they're looking to improve their relationship. And what we have now, we have far too many couples that are just surviving. And that's a very dull and unexciting life because there's so much more to be had. My wife and I, man, if you could see us, people people approach us like they think we're still newlyweds. We have a ball. We laugh a lot, we play a lot. We have a really good time. And that's really what marriage is supposed to be. Listen, until you become each other's best friend, the absolute last thing you need is friends of the opposite sex. Remember when I said in the beginning that my primal urge or my primal nature demanded more than friendship from the girl who would soon become my wife? Well, that's because the very natural difference in polarity between the masculine and the feminine energy, it urges us to be more than just friends. Now, some of us can tame those urges, and so of course there's always exceptions to the rule. But even within the rule, even within the exceptions, there are rules. And so, for instance, if I see my buddy's wife at the grocery store, of course we'll speak and maybe even have a little small talk. I mean, after all, we're friends, right? But particularly friends of each other's marriage. And so that's a cool arrangement. But what we won't have is, we won't be routinely meeting for lunch or routinely calling and texting each other with casual conversation. Now that's unduly familiar. Now, some people think that that's a bit much, going too far. It's too hard to put that kind of pressure on each other. I don't think that's hard work. I think that's heart work. Listen, at the end of the day, all you can do is all you can do. And that's enough. Just make sure you do all you can do. That's the word. Peace.